Flock is a new creature tamer game, a relatively well-trodden genre at this point, but don't let that put you off. This is a bit of a masterclass in showing great imagination, tight game design, and is frankly a joy to play. This is the XboxEra video review for Flock. You are a bird rider, but before you take to the skies, you do get to create your character. You'll start off by customizing your general appearance, apparel, and importantly, the plumage of your giant bird. There's a surprisingly limited amount of customization on offer, at least at first, but more on that later. I gave myself some larger ears, a full head of spiky hair, and a cape. For my giant bird, I settled for something resembling a toucan, at least colour-wise. There's a goofiness to the character designs with their larger-than-life eyes and Play-Doh noses and ears, but it did make me grin. Now to take flight, and again, the developers have got the vibe of Flock just right. We soar over a vast and misty landscape, thinking it's the ground at first before realising the truth. This is an enormous, fluffy and constantly moving cloud layer. As we set forth, the pull on the right trigger initiates a burst of speed and puffs of vapour on our bird's wings. There are no height adjustments, obstacle avoidance concerns, or other complex flying mechanics to worry about here. The game takes care of your altitude automatically, allowing you to concentrate on the fun stuff. Strewn around the environment are sort of in-game funnels that provide a speed boost, and occasionally you might trigger one when chasing down a creature that you didn't intend, which can be a bit frustrating. It seems as if the cloud layer is a relatively new problem, judging by some brief exposition from our characters we start our journey, and the characters we meet refer to it as a cloud surge, something that hasn't happened in this land for decades. The characters we first meet are Aunt Jane, a very work-focused zoology professor who's requested our assistance, and the amusing Uncle Reg. He's a comedic character, a shepherd with a sincere admiration for his sheep, and who definitely has the best naming suggestions for the creatures we will come to discover. Aunt Jane is creating an official Uplands creature guide, and it's simply impossible to do without a bird rider like us, especially as her research team, characters that you'll find throughout the various locales, has been swallowed up by the cloud surge. There's also a clothing merchant who will provide us with some sweet new threads, if we've got the wool to pay for it. We're treated to a brief tutorial on exactly how to catalogue and document these wonderful creatures, and they have all sorts of brilliant names. Bules, cosmits, thrips and glebes. The animals in this fantastical place are varied and imaginative, but they all have something in common. Every animal in Flock can fly, a soaring, colourful menagerie of various shapes, sizes and adorable chirping noises, every one of them charmed to follow your every move. In order to get these cute little beasties to follow us around though, we'll need to learn how to charm. This is accomplished by using a variety of different whistles handed down by Aunt Jane's grandmother. Disaster strikes. The settlement is raided by a flock of bothersome burgling bules with accompanying prison stripe patterns, and they swipe everything in sight. The whistles, the feed bag, even the knitting manuals for new clothes are all gone. Thankfully, burgling bules like to hide in fairly easy to spot rounded mounds of pure green meadow grass, and Uncle Reg knows a thing or two about sheep and their grazing habits. With the help of our woolly heroes, and we'll find and name some new sheep along the way, we can retrieve our missing items. These range from whistles, knitting guides for new clothes, and shiny bangles that allow us to have an even larger flock to fly with. And thus begins the meat of the game. Journey around the world, cataloguing creatures, growing our flock and befriending stray sheep to help find the items that remain wedged in the beaks of those pesky burgling bules. With no threats or combat whatsoever, it is wonderfully meditative and quite calming indeed. This isn't really a Pokemon-like, and honestly, I feel like the game has more in common with something like Viva Pinata than anything else. The game's creature guide is a dopamine delivery machine, gleefully filling in the details of new creatures as we discover and correctly identify them with a bit of help from Aunt Jane. There's no punishment for getting anything wrong, and I genuinely became quite addicted in discovering every animal I could. Charming them requires a particular whistle associated with the relevant species, and then it's as simple as getting the right distance between you and the animal and whistling away with the A button. Some creatures require more accurate charming than others. Mistime or misjudge the distance and you'll spook the creature completely. Hunting for trickier beasties requires some focus via a pull on the left trigger, and you can either perch on a nearby tree and zoom in, or look around while on your bird's back. The former is certainly more powerful as you can zoom in and out to quite a degree, and you're not flying around whilst attempting to keep your reticule trained where you want it. What's particularly lovely about Flock is that it doesn't rush you at all, and it really leans into the strengths of its cloudy, colourful world. The locales are all beautiful to just exist in, and the creatures all have their own particular way about them. Some may only come out at night or sunset. Others may hide themselves as rocks or piles of mud on the riverbank. Even the fruit on the trees may be a sprug in disguise. Occasionally, Flock will throw a surprise quest or two your way, with some tweaked mechanics to master or larger mysteries to solve. They usually revolve around larger, completely undiscovered creatures that seem to have an effect on the cloud surge itself, revealing new areas like the boggy wetlands, the dark mushroom forests, and more once you've tracked them down and charmed them accordingly. Identifying a new chirp or buzz within the world around you is an engrossing experience, and when combined with the sheer joy of soaring around the world, it all becomes very zen. My kids in particular were absolutely smitten with the game, and I really liked how it taught them, through gameplay, how to identify different species. It's really lovely stuff. If there's one criticism I have, and there are very few for Flock, it's of the game's abrupt and completely unnecessary end credits roll. It appeared, at least to my eyes, completely out of the blue, and for a moment I feared the game was over when I still had 10 or more creatures left to find. What gives? Thankfully, the game allows you to continue from where you left off and carry on filling in that creature guide or exploring the land to your heart's content with another new mechanic to utilise. Regardless, it felt like a very peculiar design choice that came about all too soon, a jarring moment that was completely at odds with the calming, wholesome vibe of the game. While I played the majority of my time in Flock as a solo bird rider, this can be, if you so choose, a multiplayer affair, with room for up to 4 players in cooperative play. I managed to get a bit of time in with Jessie and it all worked well enough. I can see a case being made for both ways to play, but having spent so much time out in the wilderness, just me and my giant bird, I wouldn't change the experience one bit, but I can definitely see my kids and their cousins having a lot of fun working together on this one. In the end, I rolled credits around 4 hours into the game, and I still had 10 or so creatures to find, tame and collect. There are bonus achievements for becoming an expert in each species, and some of the later animals are very tricky to find indeed. So I think both for folks looking to solve this on their own, and for achievement hunters, there's plenty of enjoyment to be had here. What a refreshing delight Flock is. Bright, bold and absolutely bursting with vibrant colour and the kind of charming quirkiness that constantly teases a smile, this is truly a world of creature comforts. It doesn't do a lot new, but what it does do, it does brilliantly. If you're an Xbox Game Pass subscriber, you should absolutely add this one to your download queue. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and why not ring that notification bell so that we can let you know when we've got some fresh content. And if you really love what we do, head over to patreon.com/XboxEra where you can pledge your support. We'll see you next time.